This is Matz. We don't need to introduce him, so please welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to present the keynote for the RubyConf 2007. And I guess this is the climax of the conference for you guys, and the deepest hell for me. Anyway, this year I have the 4-part keynote, and I'm going to present the first one. First one, language matters, or not. Okay, here's a plan of the Hello World program. Nothing special, and you can run that program with Ruby. See, Hello World, and you can do it. Oh, it also runs on Pro. Hello World. And it even runs on Python as well. So this is a trilingual Hello World program. And any arbitrary algorithm can be described in any Turing complete language by definition. So that means the language do not matter, in theory at least. Let me prove that by example. Twitter. When Twitter comes out, everyone excited. It is fun, and it's written on Ruby on Rails. Great! Whoa, Ruby can implement such a cool service. But it has several troubles, slow performance, out of service, etc. And some disappointed a lot, saying, "Oh, Ruby doesn't scale out now," or something like that. But people behind Twitter have made a great effort. Since last January, they gained a 1,000% performance boost. 1,000%. That is 10 times faster. 10 times. Without changing the language or framework. So they could improve performance without changing the language or the framework. That means the choice of the language or the framework does not really matter in performance. Right? So in this case, what made difference? MySQL, Solaris, and dtrace. They found a lot of bottlenecks using dtrace and fixed them one by one. And finally, they accomplished the performance 10 times faster. So language matters not. Doesn't matter. Do you agree? Probably not. There's something that makes difference, but it's not the language itself. I think it is the attitude of the user's language. Okay, do you have any Python users around you? Most of them believe one true way. Suppose you tell them that you don't like the self-argument for methods or something like that, and they would try to convince you that is the right way or something. But we believe in diversity. There's more than one way to do it. When someone tells us how Ruby sucks, it sometimes does. We tend to agree. And try to fix it if possible. This is Roy Chan, the founder and CEO of the ThoughtWorks. I hope he doesn't mind using this picture without his consent. He told me yesterday how great Ruby is. I know. But the ThoughtWorks is the company that hires Martin Fowler, not Chad Fowler. And the 42% revenue from Ruby on Rails in the United States, 42% revenue of the whole company in the States. So, but he told me I made his life tough just because, he doesn't allow the employee to work on Ruby, they quit. So the executive need to persuade their clients to use Ruby to keep their employee. That's right. And he complimented the language, the Ruby, so much. I was puffed up. But at the same time, I was a little bit embarrassed. And I couldn't help saying that. But there are some other language, good language like Python or PHP. And for the record, as I said yesterday, I love every language except for a few. And I don't name it. But I love Python as well. For evidence, I even wore a Python T-shirt today. Anyway, he said that they are good languages, but there's a critical difference between them and Ruby. What do you think? The difference? Attitude, right? You. I mean, you. You guys are very great. And he said this is very special, the gathering of the people. They're quite smart people and enthusiastic. And that's the difference. The Ruby is great because not only the language is great, but the people matters, and the motivation matters, and enthusiasm matters. And Martin Fowler once said that the Ruby people is nice, and he knew he knows many open source software community, but this is the best. He said, not for me. We are the best, nicest people in the open source field. And this is quote from Martin Fowler. Okay? And there's business value in fun. After all, motivation is a major factor in programmers' productivity. So the attitude that Ruby makes you fun is the value, even business value. And from the motivation, and by motivation, I love it. And you accomplish productivity, and since you gain productivity through Ruby, and you have the positive feeling, and more you must motivate more. And these are dangerous numbers. This is called love-hate ratio. This is quite simple numbers. Trying to find the search to Google for I love Ruby and programming. I have to remove the Ruby, the dual Ruby. So I love Ruby programming or other Ruby language. Then we calculate them for every language listed. And we try to find I hate Ruby and or list or something. Then calculate them. So we're the number one by far. So we are using most beloved language in the world. So as a summary, the people matters, and we are pretty nice people. And we are nice to each other. And you, each one of you, are the power of Ruby. Thank you. Thank you. It's not the at the end of the talk. I want to say thank you for each one of you, but 500 people is just too many. So I just say thank you for you collectively. By the way, no one mentioned about the logo during this conference. How nice you are. Considering what it is said in the list. Anyway, this is the official logo for the language. I'll remove the text part, which is ugly. And the lower one is the grayscale version. This is just touched up to for readability. This is the end of the part 1. Okay, part 2. And as we said before, we are going to release 1.9 at the Christmas this year. We will. Unfortunately, it is not as stable as we expected at the first, but anyway, we release. And probably most of you will be interested in what's in 1.9, what the changes in 1.9. So I told you the ground picture first. 1.8 will be stay there for a long time in the future as a stable version. So you'll use it as a daily. And 1.9 introduce major incompatibility, and 2.0 for our driving force. The 1.8 is a stable release, so it will be what you use daily, even after the Christmas. Its primary goal is being stable and compatible. The 1.9 will be the bleeding edge version for the certain period of time. It will be fast, powerful, and fixes some kind of the design mistake I made before. So it would be the Ruby design right, hopefully. Then 2.0 will be our driving force. The open source community or any open source software requires a goal to be reached. Unless we don't make any progress, the software project will die. So we don't want to die. So we need the further goal and the aim to survive. So to be a Rolling Stone, we need the 2.0 as a goal for the future. Its primary goal is the code scalability. Remember the Rails, the aracter-based, and constant. not me. Put this.
Right, this is all part of the folksy feel of RubyConf. Rich was actually making that happen.
So this is supposed to be Rich's fault. Okay, let me tell you what incompatibility in 1.9. That we have some incompatibility to fix what I made wrong. There's some incompatibilities are severe, some trivial. The severe incompatibilities, these. We change the block arguments, and the string no longer enumerable. And we finally introduced the M17N, the Unicode. Block arguments, local, variable only. So you don't put the global variable or the method, the attribute assignment or the area slicing will not be allowed in the block arguments. Thank you. And there also the block scoped. If you assign if you use the block parameter having the same name in the outer local variable, so the parameter, the argument, does not affect the outer local variable, and you will be warned if you put the -w, the command line option. And the strings are no longer include the enumerable module, just because the strings are sometimes seen as the sequence of lines, and sometimes considered as a sequence of the characters, and sometimes a sequence of the bytes. So it's up to users or the situation. So I changed it to specify explicitly using enumerator. So except, thank you. Instead of writing the each, which happen to work on lines, we explicitly saying that the lines choose bytes or to enumerable on, so to iterate on. Okay, M17N, the multilingualization. This is the huge change, but this is basically the strings and the other character text-based, the processing based on character, and they will become the encoding aware. I mean the slicing, getting the first element of the strings returns the number, the code point of the first byte, but it would return the strings that contains a single character. You mean that the zeroth element of the character is not the 97, which happened to the ASCII A, but the strings A. And it would work on the multi-byte characters as well. Like the third character, I mean the fourth character in the strings is the a in Japanese. So we retrieve the strings from that. The a, which is multi-byte character, will return. And you can put the Pythonic decoding pragma or the magic comment in the script to denote which encoding you use in the script. This is the UTF-8 hello Matsumoto in the 1.9 Ruby. And you can also able to specify the encoding when you open the file if you want. But the Ruby will have the primary encoding, which is the default encoding you use in the text processing. Like if you specify the UTF-8 as the primary encoding and the process UTF-8 files, you don't have to worry about encoding anymore. But if you want to handle the multi-encoding at the same time, you have to specify encoding explicitly. And they are the major changes that introduce the severe incompatibility. So you have to fix your programs to support these changes. We have more trivial incompatibilities like this. A lot of changes. But the most of them, they're very trivial, so most of you don't suffer for changes. And we have some deprecation of the method. It's not used a lot or the worn for a long time, except for file exists. And, since it's harmless, it may be revived. And we have new features. A lot. They're highlighted. We finally introduced the lambda, the literal, which David Black doesn't like. And we have to use the call method to invoke the lambda. It's ugly, and we can use the dot parentheses, which is the slightly less ugly. And we will be able to use the multiple sprouting argument list, and we can use the mandatory arguments after the optional arguments. For the lambda, the symbol, this is lambda, the top one. This is our lambda literal. Using it, the slightly tight symbol, and rotate it a bit. I find lambda. It's lambda. Enumerator. We had the enumerator bundled with 1.8, but it's now built in. And by using that, we can use the more fun enumerator chain and external iterator. Like this. Some ask me for the map with index method, but now we can use the map which returns the enumerator if we call it without block, and with index method of the enumerator that calls the enumerator with the index added. So you can even use the find with index method or anything. The reduce with index or anything like that. That's kind of the interesting chain. And Enumerator also works as the external iterator. The iterator that Ruby uses for a long time are called the internal iterator, like the block was passed inside of the method, and we call back the block from inside of the method. In contrast, the iterator in C++ or the Java are called the external iterator, since it's external, it exists external of the loop body, and we can take single items out of them. The internal iterator is more easy and to understand and easy to implement, and the external iterator has a kind of the too close relationship with iterator and the collection. But we can now use create the external iterator out of the internal iterator using the fiber inside. I mean co-routing inside. This is example. E1 is the array, the iterator out of the array. Each without block returns iterator over the array. And the E2 is the iterator from different array. And we loop on it. This E2, that is not comma, it's dot. E1 dot next, I mean. E1 dot next plus E2 dot next makes 1 and 10, it makes 11. And the group goes next iteration, and 2, 11 makes 13. And 3, 4 makes 7. And the next iteration, the E2 has no element anymore. So it's called the stop iteration exception. And loop does catch it silently, and exit. So it does loop for each items in iterator. This is kind of interesting feature. It's inherited from the language name Satyr. What's the point? Well, I'm going to go to part 3. Okay, I'm going to talk about the implementation. Happily, we now have alternative the implementation for the Ruby, JRuby, Rubinius, Iron Ruby, or the Cardinal or something like that. But these three are very higher level of the accomplishment. And now JRuby is faster than MRI, the Matz Ruby interpreter. Iron Ruby faster than mine. Rubinius is faster than my train. We had good news for one night. Finally, we succeeded to get rid of Matz as an implementer. And we now have Yao, still yet another Ruby virtual machine. Fastest Ruby VM ever. Praise should goes to Koichi. Good. This graph is given from Koichi. Okay. The MRI is 1. Here. There. And the blue line is the Yao performance on MS Win32. The red line is the Yao performance on the Linux. Okay. This some kind of application benchmarks. And we have some kind of more than 5 factors depend on benchmark. Some even slower than MRI, but that's okay. Okay, we have some kind of performance boost, 5 times, 4 times, 3 times. No, yours is far faster than MRI. No, everyone is faster than mine. That's okay. I'm a designer of the language. And the 1.9 gives memory diet. Mostly done by the Akira Tanaka there, for this diet. Mostly the object inlining. The struct, string, object, hash, and big num, and range object without any instance variables made in line. So this is the very artificial benchmark, but the memory usage goes very low. And this is RDoC generation in the build time. And we had I'm not sure, 550 megabyte memory. It used to have 1.9, and now has slightly over 100, I guess. I don't read the letter. Too small. Anyway, we compacted memory. And so the 1.9 is very memory efficient, and not very, but slightly memory efficient than 1.8. Part 4, the last part. At the end of the keynote, I give you the golden questions. Where we are from, where we are we, where we will go. I mean, about the language. Where we're from Java, C++, Perl, Python, whatever. And who are we? Rubies. And we are dominating world. Okay. But we have to be aware of the bubble economy and the cycle of tragedy. And you don't know that. You may know that the cycle of tragedy means that we start humbly and we work hard, and the sake of the effort we gain a success. But we puffed up and we feel pride. We conflict with each other and get in war, or the very bad thing happens, and then they end up to nothing. And keep become humble and then start again. It goes cycles and cycles. That's the history. And we're here. We are very aware of the future. We are aware of the future. So where we will go, enterprise, no matter how we want or not, the Ruby will go to enterprise. Actually, I don't want to, but I can't help it, I guess. The suits people surrounding us. We can't help it. So, to satisfy suit people and make a living, we have to go scalability. The scalability is not really a language issue, but the system issue. But we have the scalability of data size. Some systems, terabytes of data, or even terabytes log file in a system, or the access frequency, or like the tweeted bit server, or the size of the program, or the size of the team, or number of CPUs. We are having the days of the multi-core, so that we have so many CPUs in the machine, or we have so many CPUs to handle in a program or in a system. So in the good old days, the machines are getting faster and faster without any effort in the software side. But the situation changed. We have to support multi-core explicitly. So that's what we have to go. And we need to address these issues, and that's the future. No matter how we want it or not. And I'm very happy with this situation, that not the business situation, but we have this very good, nice people and smart people gathered around the Ruby, the language I made. And we are working on the tasks and the problems the real world gives us. We solve the problems with Ruby, enjoying, and we can change the world. And I thank you again for loving Ruby and having enthusiasm with Ruby, and thank you for changing the world. Thank you.
Try the Gimpy microphone. I'll walk around. How about that?
Probably I haven't expressed myself very clear in English. Why don't you speak Japanese? But that's life. So I want to make myself clear. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Hi, my name's Nick. Did you mention that external iterators or external enumerators are using fibers, and can you tell us about fibers?
Fiber is a coroutine that is the non-preemptive to the threads without any scheduling. That can be found on other languages like Lua, or what other language? I don't know. Some variation of dialect of Python. And it's not disclosed to users unless you explicitly require the external library.
Yes, my name is Drew, and my question is regarding CPU scalability. Mm-hmm. Do you plan to continue using green threads and supporting it over multiple cores, or are you going to try and go back to native threads?
I didn't tell you, but 1.8 will stay using the green thread, but 1.9 will go native threads. But not cloud. but with the giant lock. But it's less safe, just because it uses the interpreter lock, and I believe for the language like Ruby, the parallel concurrency should be done by processes. The creating process is very cheap, and we can work on the inter-process communication by, for example, the message sending system, and we can accomplish the performance on the multi-core system without using the fine-grained thread.
Hello, Matz. I was wondering if there was anybody working on a shim library from 1.8 to 1.9 like there was for 1.6 to 1.8.
Not really. Just because the severe incompatibility is not able to resolved by the additional library. But some slight incompatibility can be solved by the new sim, but no one is working on right now.
Another one back here.
Programming in Ruby makes me happy. Domo arigato.
You're welcome.
What is your question? Question? Someone right here. Anyone? Toby? Question? Here we are, Hal. Good.
Hi. I'm curious about how mandatory arguments after optional arguments are going to work. How is the syntax going to work?
Just put the mandatory argument after the optional, the equal signs. Do you understand what I mean? Oh. Small font. Font. Blah blah blah. This is it. Bigger? How do you call it? Just normally. A will be 1, B will be 2, C will be.
How do you call it with Matt?
Simple.
Oh, really? Question? All right, everyone, calm down.
Hey, Matz. Following from that example, what if you have 2 optional arguments and you supply 3 arguments to the function?
Do you have?
And you raise that up when you're done typing, Matz?
Blah, blah, blah. Like this? Oh, 1, 2, 3. A goes 1. B goes 2. C goes 2. Oh, C is 3. I meant D. Because 3. Like this.
The obvious. One more here.
Hello.
Hi.
2 questions. One is the 1.9 threading code seems to indicate that there are different optional thread models. And it seemed like there was a plan to get away from the global lock, from the interpreter lock, at least looking at the code. But you're saying that right now you're saying that you envision that multi-core is going to be handled with multiple processes, and that's probably a good idea. I guess my question is, do you ever envision getting rid of the global lock, or don't think that's going to happen soon? And the next
I'm answering the first question first. The removing global lock means that we need to lock in fine grain. That means the multitudes of lock and unlock. That would hinder the performance a lot. So I don't believe that it's a wise idea to use the fine grain lock in a language like Ruby, unless we find the wise way to handle the hashes, arrays, instance variables without lock. But I'm not sure. It's just hard to believe there's the smart way to implement it. It's just a matter of cost.
So it's not going to happen soon, it's safe to say. The other question is, I was at the 2005, and I missed the 2006, sorry. And we talked in 2005 about having named arguments where you could actually assign to local variables by their name. And I was very excited about that idea. Where is that? And is it still on the radar screen or at this point?
Yeah, we couldn't make it named argument to accomplish before Christmas. So I should have abandoned. I had to abandon. So you have to wait until 2.0 for keyword arguments. I'm sorry.
Did we mention daylight savings time?
Hi, Matz. An informal sampling I took of the people around me showed that many of us are uncomfortable at the tone of the questions last night. And I just want to say that the overwhelming feeling among those of us that I've spoken with is of gratitude. And if we're nice, you have set an example of being nice and a man of great achievement and great humility. So, arigatou gozaimasu.
どういたしまして。
Marcel and I have a question. No, I'm just wondering about. Can I go back to that for a second? The argument syntax.
Sure.
Because actually, I had a couple of questions. One, I don't mean this sarcastically, but why would you do this? In other words, why would you want, from the point of view of the API of calling a method? I guess I think of like the idea of something optional.
It's a preliminary step for the keyword arguments.
Now you tell us. The other thing is, how does this work with the star and the multiple arguments? I mean, where can you put that? Yeah.
The multiple argument comes where?
Yeah.
Comes right after the optional arguments. I'm sorry. Comes right after the optional argument. That you have to fill all the mandatory arguments at the top of the list and the bottom of the list, then fill the optional arguments, then the rest arguments, the asterisk.
More questions? Here comes one.
Going back to the external enumerators, you described the loop as throwing a stop exception or stop iteration exception, is that actually like acts like a real exception that you would catch within your loop?
It's a real exception.
So it's able to be explicitly
Yeah, you
applied.
can handle it manually.
More questions?
Are you going to provide some way from routine to find out the name of the routine that called it?
Routine for?
There.
What was the question?
Marcel, would you like to answer that question?
Oh, thank you.
What was the question?
Okay, a way for a routine to find out the name of the caller of the routine.
Oh, the caller.
Who actually calls?
What?
So,
it's a caller. Caller method. Yeah, it returns a list of the caller names, the method names, and the line file name and the line numbers.
Matz, you made a point in part one of your keynote to talk about how nice the community is, and there's always kind of been that informal slogan about how nice we are, and Matz is nice, and so we are nice. Are you concerned
I'm not
that
sure I'm nice or not.
Are you concerned that like the community, as it grows exponentially, that's going to be hard to maintain, that niceness scales?
Yeah, that was my concern too. And when I was having the conference in the 60 people, I didn't expect the conference grow this big. And I wanted, when I have the conference of the 500 people, and whether I can maintain this niceness of the community or the attendee in the conference. But I believe we succeeded. This is very nice people of 500. It's incredible. It's kind of like a miracle. I really appreciate that.
Hi, Matz. My name is Ted Bailing. I work for Hardware Communications in South Carolina. Thank you for giving me a language that doesn't make me cry, first of all. My question is, I have an interest in having some additional functionality in the language, which should be minor, hopefully, in that in a method, it would be great if I knew the class of the variable that the return value is going to be assigned to. For example, if I were being assigned the return value to a string versus an array, I would want my method to be able to behave differently in that case. It would be similar in Perl to want array.
Remember, this is a question for Matz, not for you.
Yeah,
So, as Ryan would say, STFU.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea.
You're already all the way in the back, and just walk a little bit. I left my wheelchair in Boulder.
I have a question about the loop exception, or the stop loop exception.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is one of the performance problems that Twitter had initially was that they were throwing a lot of exceptions.
Please speak slowly.
Sorry.
I'm not an English speaker.
My understanding with one of the performance problems Twitter specifically had was they were unnecessarily throwing exceptions, and the cost of building the stack trace for those exceptions was one of the things that slowed it down a lot. So my concern is that if most loops are being ended by this exception, such that every time you end a loop, you build this stack trace, does this exception build a stack trace and thus have a potential performance impact? Sure.
Right, but
so that was not a major performance problem. We saw we do a lot of requests, so yes, I'm from Twitter. Sorry, I'm Blaine. I'm from Twitter.
Thank you.
There we go. I also live in San Francisco, so I just assume everyone knows me. So we all do in San Francisco. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. So the problem was we saw somewhere between a 3 and a 5% performance increase when we fixed the bug in Rails that was throwing exceptions at a stack level of 400 or 500 with many times per request. So essentially every time the attributes got reassigned, it would throw an exception if it was a nil attribute. It's a bad thing. And so fixing that was a small kind of CPU improvement, but didn't fix major problems. And it's only a real problem when the stack trace is really deep.
I guess I was missing one.
So the stabilization exception was raised once in the loop to terminate. So unless you have the heavily multi-nested loop, it won't be a problem, I believe.
All right, more questions?
But there can be the room for optimization in the raising exception, like the building stack trace, the lazily or something like that. But I'm not sure yet.
Hello. I had a question about class variables, and I'm no expert, but I've... Oh, hi. Question about class variables. I'm no expert. I've just read a lot of blog posts about it, and there seems to be a lot of kind of back and forth, and I'd like somebody to help clarify to me sort of what they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to be used, because there's some... I think Ryan can follow up. I'll pass it on. I'm not sure exactly what my question is. I just thought that it...
Okay, let me explain about class variables. And in the process of the developing 1.9, I changed the behavior of the class variables. But recently I had an audit of the changes, and I abandoned several changes to keep compatibility and the understandability of 1.9. So class variables are one of them. It's fixed. It's reverted. So in addition, as a general rule of class variables, don't use their global variables.
Hi, Matz.
Yes.
I'm David. Thank you for a language that actually makes me cry. I have one question, which is that a lot of times I find myself passing the current binding down into a method, and I wonder if there is thought about actually being able to access the caller's binding so that you don't have to do that.
The binding of caller over something like that is proposed several times. It couldn't made it for 1A just because it's too difficult to implement. And the Koichi once said it is easy to implement in Yelp. I don't know for sure, but if it's easy, is it? What? He's nodding. And I'm open to add it to 1.9 sometime in the future, but not at the Christmas time.
Hey, Matz, Charlie over here.
Sure.
First off, I would say definitely thumbs down on the binding of caller, because it makes it even more implicit who is accessing your scope. So then I'll move on. Is the 1.9 bytecode going to be frozen, the bytecode specification? Because we have a partial 1.9 bytecode machine in JRuby, but we're not sure if there's going to be additional changes, so we've kind of been waiting on it.
Ask him. I'm a designer of the language.
So Koichi, Tasada-san, will the 1.9 bytecode, YARV bytecode, be frozen soon? Or will the 1.9 bytecode be frozen or specified completely soon?
No. In current year, the YAML assembler or something, the accessor to the bytecode instruction is included, but it's not stable. So I'm planning to remove this feature to access the instruction in the Christmas. So if I fix the bytecode or some feature, I include the YAML assembler something. Yes.
Okay. So then one small follow-up. Will there be an ahead of time compiler in 1.9 in December?
He says he's gonna fix someday in the future, not at the Christmas. So yeah, you discuss.
Hi, Matz. If you had infinite time to work on Ruby, what features would you like to see in Ruby 3.0?
3.0? I have no idea. But I didn't say that my ideas of Ruby 2.0 in the keynote, so I disclosed some of them. I had some kind of the namespace or the class box, something called class box as a feature, like to isolate the changes, like the one in the active support. The current Ruby, the changes to the open class, the affect globally. So when active support changes the core class, like time or the fixed number, then when you want to change change the class behavior, so it may conflict. So it's kind of like the good old day of the Fortran, that no local variables and everything is global. It's kind of tough. So for the 21st century language, we should be able to isolate our changes in the namespace or module. That's what I want to have or implement in Ruby 2.0. And these kind of the isolation and the modulation of the program structure is the primary subject of the next major version.
One thing I've been wondering about is method wrapping. There seems to be seems to be getting pushed back farther into the future. I wonder if that's because of design decisions or implementation difficulties or what.
Which one? Implementation difficulty of what?
The method wrapping, the pre-post and wrap, that kind of thing, aspect-oriented programming.
Aspects.
Do you have design decisions still to make, or
not
is it just
yet,
implementation problem?
I want to introduce some kind of the method combination, which can be found in Closed, the common list object system, but not like the aspects like we found in the aspect J or something like that. So I personally feel like the features like aspect J or the point cut system is some kind of the application feature or some kind of the framework feature, and the language should support the primitive feature to help them accomplish these kind of aspects. The method combination can be the feature to help them, like, I guess.
We have time for a few more. And today I've learned something interesting in this room, and that is that Lisp programmers sit on the right side of the room, and so do people who don't want to ask questions. But it might just be because I wasn't standing there and they were being nice. So, who has questions over here? You're not on the right, but okay. I'll start over here and then I'll make my way to you.
Right now we've got methods like instance variable get and instance variable set, and they take not only a symbol with the at the beginning of them, but they also kind of stink from the perspective of how we normally tend to code Ruby. Why don't we
Pardon?
But they normally tend to not be good in the way that we normally try to code Ruby. Why don't we have just plain old accessors for instance variables and things like that?
Oh, I still don't get it. I'm sorry. Did you translate, Chad?
He's saying that instance variable get and the string or symbol with the at sign in the front of the variable is ugly compared to most things in Ruby. Why not make a pretty version or some way to easily or more easily access instance variables directly from outside an instance?
Well. I think it follows the principle of encapsulation, which isn't there in the common Lisp system.
So I don't want this to be perceived as a hostile question, though it might be a difficult question. Which is there's some other VMs coming along, and right now they're kind of nascent. But one of the big problems with Lisp, it seems like, is it was so easy to implement your own VM that they just multiplied like mad, and the whole community fragmented and never, resolved on a single implementation. And the great thing about these new languages like Ruby and Python is there's been this one dominant implementation, so everyone stayed unified. Okay.
Unified.
So what do you think you're going to do if these other implementations evolve and there comes a time when there's some disagreement about where Ruby should go? How will that be resolved or dealt with to keep the community together?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, Ruby is too difficult to implement. Everyone implements Lisp once or twice, but very few people implement Ruby. Yeah, I did once. Never. I think that's the difference between Lisp and Ruby. Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately. Right, but if we keep the number small, less than 10 or something like that, we don't have the community split. We have the tens of thousands of Lisp implementation.
How many people have implemented Lisp?
See? Some even implemented many. And the small number of the independent implementation keeps diversity, and we can work together to compete and make progress, I think. It's a good thing to have the several or some separate implementation, but not that many.
So,
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Actually, the JRuby people and Yelp people, Rubinius people, communicate together to make it better, make them better. Okay, the question? Yeah, there.
Hi, Matt. So I've got a kind of a language design question for you. I know you like to experiment with crazy syntax from time to time, and I was wondering if you had given any thought to a syntax for passing multiple blocks to a method.
Well, I tried several times for a thought, the food for thought, and but I failed each time I tried. So, it's kind of important to keep simplicity of the single block syntax that Ruby has. For that simple syntax, we can use it as some kind of the user definable syntax, like that loop, that the method works like the control structure, and it is very easy to emulate the control structure by the user-defined method. And if I allow the multiple block for a method, so I couldn't think of any good syntax to keep it as clean as it is now, and make it as the works like syntax. And the survey on the OCaml, the object camel implementation that has the functions that takes the closures or the function value, and 98% or 97% of the whole functions that takes the block or the function takes only one argument. So it covers the 97% of the use cases. That's good enough, I guess. With the 3% is not good enough to make it ugly.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions, maybe 3 if someone runs over here and stands here and waits. So.
Hello. You've talked a bit about some of the things that are going to be phased out of Ruby or deprecated in the new versions. Is there something about Ruby, some feature or some way of doing things in Ruby that you think is too hard to use or doesn't work right that we're stuck with? I mean, you just think it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but it's too late to change? Is there some frustration? I want to hear from your perspective as language designer, cautionary tale.
I remember I failed several times that I made mistake, but I just didn't remember right now. So I believe they are trivial. I hope they are trivial.
Hi. Speaking of crazy syntax, do you like list comprehensions like in Haskell? Do you think they're pretty?
Do you ask me that I like it or not?
Yeah. Do you think
don't.
You don't. Good answer.
Just because fluent interface or the combination of the methods, I feel more beauty in it than list comprehension. It's about time, I guess. Charles says so. So
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's all, folks. Thank you.